You're about to learn how to optimize your game launch so you at least double your market size. Hey, how's it going? My name is Dariusz, and in this video, you're going to get a technique that will show you how to get your game in front of the biggest possible addressable market in a way that will at least double your market size. And you'll get a 3-step action plan that will help you optimize your game launch. And even if it is, 2 or 3 years away. In fact, if you do this technique you're about to learn too late, you're going to miss at least 50% of the market. Also, if you don't do this technique I'm about to show you as soon as you can, you might delay your game to 6 months or more. And I'm not going to talk about obvious things like, pick the right genre or, build a community before you launch. What you're going to learn is a little less obvious, and even big indies and AAA companies make this mistake often too. So here's how it works. So first I want to show you an insight that you've probably never heard before, and then I'll get into the 3-step action plan that will show you how to optimize your game launch in a way that you can at least double the size of your market. So the major insight I want to talk about is what you do starting from day one will determine how financially successful your game will be. So here's the core idea. When game devs plan to launch their game, they're probably thinking about one platform or one language right from the beginning, right? For example, they might focus on Steam and the English version of their game. And then later they'll think about porting their game to other consoles or, other store pages like Epic or GOG. And then they might think about localizing their game into other languages. But what most game devs don't realize is that they're almost guaranteeing that they're going to miss 50% of the market. What happens is as the game launch date, approaches, they're going to now scramble to port their game and localize their game. So what am I exactly talking about? Why is this? Well, you basically only have one launch, right? Because if you leave porting and localization to the last minute, and if you leave it too late, you're going to miss your big chance at one successful launch. So let me give you an example. Say you want to localize your game into 2 other languages, right? But you decided to do this after launch. Well, those native speakers are not going to give you a second chance, right? Even if you have updates, your best chance is at launch to grab all those players and not after launch. Also, if you decided to, port your game to other consoles or, PC store pages after your launch, then you just missed your opportunity to launch your game in front of the biggest possible crowd you can, right? Also, if you basically, relaunch your game after your launch, all those players and all the press you got will be less excited to talk about your game because the most excitement you'll get is during your initial launch. Also, another problem with, having another relaunch, basically porting or localizing your game after your launch, the cost of your marketing is doubled, right? So you had your initial marketing push, your ad spend for your initial launch. And then after your relaunch, you're gonna have to do some more marketing, and that's gonna cost you, more ad money. Another problem is that most game devs don't realize how much time it takes to port and localize a game. Porting firms and, porting companies require at least 4 to 6 months to port your game. And this doesn't take into account to, all the certification and licensing you need to do if you want to go on consoles. And also Steam Deck also needs certification. So you got to get those lined up before you even approach the porting companies or porting firms. Also, don't forget all those store pages require different, art assets and dimensions. So you're going to have to make various assets for each page, and you don't want to leave this to the last minute. It might delay your game. So basically you don't want to leave porting and localization and, setting up store pages to the last minute because it'll either delay your game or you're going to, decide to do it after your launch. And if you delay your game, you're basically going to lose player trust. You're going to have to pump in more money for extra development time. Also, don't forget the raised expectation from players. So, they're thinking that you're putting in more time. So that means you're going to polish up the game, even make it even better. So there's that, like I said, raised expectations. And then also all the marketing effort you had beforehand is going to lose impact. And like I said before, you're going to also have to pump in some more money into marketing if you delay your game. So the game devs that don't want to delay their game, they're going to decide, maybe they'll port and localize their game after their launch, their initial launch, right? And this isn't a good strategy either because this guarantees that they're going to miss at least 50% of the market. Because if you stick with one platform, say like Steam, and one language like English, you're stuck with them, right? And you can't relaunch because players are not going to give you a second chance. So remember, you basically have one launch and you want to optimize that launch so that way you grab the biggest crowd possible. So instead of delaying your game or relaunching, porting and localizing after your launch, here's what to do instead. So the idea is if you can go on a simultaneous launch, you should. Because if you want to guarantee the best chance at a successful launch, and if you want to basically more than double the size of your market, and you want to fully optimize, your launch, you need to plan for a simultaneous launch. And you need to plan for this launch as early as you can. In fact, probably starting from day one. Because if you deliberately plan a simultaneous launch, as early as you can, you'll give your game the best chance at reaching the biggest addressable market. So let me show you some stats. Let me show you some numbers here to show exactly what I mean. So for example, say you launched your game on Steam, the English version, right? But also if you decided to go on Xbox and PlayStation and, Epic Store and GOG, and then also you decided to localize your game into, simplified Chinese and Japanese or German, then you have essentially more than doubled the size of your market. This is what I mean when I say you're optimizing your launch, right? So for example, say you just went on Steam English version, you're not optimizing your launch because you're not squeezing out as much value as you can from your launch. So if you can launch on all the platforms in as many localized languages as you can, then you should, because this way you are squeezing out as much value as you can from your launch. And remember, players won't give you a second chance. So if you relaunch, you're not going to get the same impact as you would if you had the initial launch. And don't forget the extra cost in marketing for doing another relaunch. And plus all the momentum you had, say from press or from word of mouth is going to have a less impact if you have to relaunch. And I mean, don't get me wrong, some big indies and AAA companies do get second chances, but usually they had a lot of marketing momentum behind them, and they have a huge budget and millions to spend on another marketing push. But even saying that, most big indies and AAA companies also want to do a simultaneous launch because they know that they only have one chance to grab the biggest audience they can. So by using this simple technique where you plan to do a simultaneous launch, so basically you're going to port your game to as many platforms as you can, and you're going to localize your game to as many languages as you can. By doing this, you're guaranteeing yourself the best chance at success because you're going to expose your game to the biggest crowd possible. And if you relaunch, then that crowd won't be as big as it is during your initial launch. So here's what to do. Here's a 3-step action plan to help you optimize your game launch and more than double your market size. So step 1 is basically decide right now which platforms you're going to launch your game on. So for example, say you're just a PC game, and that's fine, but you got to remember that Steam, Epic, GOG, itch, each of these platforms have different requirements for you, in terms of art assets and marketing material, right? So it takes time to set up those store pages, right? And remember, if you are launching on consoles, you got to get those certifications and licensing, all that paperwork done as soon as you can. And this also includes the Steam Deck. But if you can launch on PC and consoles, you should. Like I said, you have one launch, and this will be the only chance you get to, expose your game to the biggest possible crowd as you can. So from day one, don't focus on just one platform. Keep in mind all the other platforms you want to launch your game at. And this way you're going to fully optimize your initial launch because you're going to squeeze out as much value as you can by, trying to get your game on as many platforms as you can. And by launching your game on as many platforms as you can, you are essentially more than doubling the size of your market. Okay, step 2 is decide on how many languages you're going to offer. But this all depends on your game, right? So say you're making a CRPG, maybe the Japanese market won't be, as optimal. So maybe you wanted to go for the German crowd, right? But remember, the more languages you can offer, the bigger your crowd will be. And then step 3 is to contact porting firms and localization firms as early as you can. So basically you want to find out their lead time and then how long it will take to, basically port and localize your game. So the sooner you do this, the better, because you don't want to delay your game, or you don't want to end up where you have to relaunch, where, you localize and port your game after your initial launch, because you're going to miss out on that huge crowd during your initial launch. So as you can see, by doing this simple technique, by doing this simple thing where you do a simultaneous launch, you're essentially guaranteeing the best chance for your game during launch, right? You're fully optimizing your launch because you're going to squeeze out as much value as you can. And by planning a simultaneous launch, you're going to have access to more than 50% of the market, right? And remember, you only have one launch, and having a relaunch means that you're going to have to at least pay more for marketing, or players won't give you a second chance, so you're going to lose all that impact you could have had during your initial launch. So if you can have a simultaneous launch, you should, because you're going to hit all the biggest addressable markets in one shot. Now I know what you might be saying. You might be saying that, well, just because I have access to the biggest addressable market as I can doesn't mean I'm going to get all that market, right? Or you might be saying, yeah, but I'd rather wait and see if it's worth spending, the extra time and money to port and localize my game, because what if my game isn't a financial success? I'd rather wait and, feel things out as I, progress and develop my game. Well, if this is the case, what I would like you to do is click on the link in the description below and read and watch that, because that will help you solve all those problems. I'll go more in depth into how to make a game that sells itself, and I'll explain to you step by step on how to make a game that players will buy, even if you are, 2 or 3 years away from, launching your game. This way, even if you are 2 or 3 years away from, releasing your game, you'll be confident that you have a winning game idea that is going to make, potential income for you. And then if you know that, then you know if it will be worth, spending the extra time, energy, and money on localizing and porting your game. Because now you know the benefits of why you want to simultaneously launch your game. So in the description below, there's a link there. Click that and I'll give you some more advanced techniques on how to do that. Okay, go start planning your simultaneous launch on different platforms and localizing your game in different languages. And I'll talk to you soon with more free tips on how to make a game that sells itself. My name is Dariusz, and good luck with your game dev journey. See ya.